On this episode, we talk about roast levels and reverse osmosis water. What's going on, everyone? Kendon and Dennis here with Victrola. We're back. We've got a couple more questions for you. This one comes from James K. I'm not saying last names. We'll edit that part out. James K asks, I like the convenience of my Keurig and often grind my own beans, Victrola of course, and use RO water, but is there anything more I can do to optimize that system? So this is an interesting one, Keurig and RO water.
Well, I mean, you know, again, all the brew principles that we've talked about in previous episodes, and they're all the same no matter what brew method you're using.
Right.
And then, you know, it's a matter of balancing how much money you want to spend, your convenience, and all of these things. And so, but I do think, you know, grinding your own coffee fresh.
Sounds like that's what he's doing. Is like the little reusable ones.
Yeah, like that sounds great. I don't know if there's any kind of Keurig hacks that you can use.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't done a ton of stuff with it. I do know that similar to what we talked about with the home brewer stuff is most of the time they're not getting up to that 195 to 205 range most of the time. So you may want to do it if you're buying one just for that. You may want to do a little bit of research on it. But I think fresh beans is great. You want to keep in mind your ratios and know that all Keurig machines, like not all that style of machines usually have some sort of, you know, medium, small, and large buttons. All that's doing is changing the water, which is changing the ratio. So you may want to pack a little more in there depending on that sort of thing.
Yeah, at 1 to 15,
yeah.
1 to 18, still holds, you know, so kind of dialing that kind of stuff into what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is great.
You may need to adjust the grind as well inside of there if you find that you have a decent ratio, but it's pulling thin. We haven't done a ton of stuff with Keurig, but that's where I would go. That's where I would start if I was dialing it in. The bigger thing, though, is probably the RO water. So RO meaning reverse osmosis, which works with sciencey stuff and basically forces water through a little membrane and takes out almost everything that's in it. The big problem with that is that you need a little bit of minerality in the water to take out some of the delicious solubles in the coffee, right? So RO water is probably not going to work as well as just filtered water from wherever you are. The same thing with distilled water. There's nothing in there. There's no cabs for the coffee molecules to catch a ride in on or something like that. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean distilled water you don't want to use. Your coffee will just be flat and
you got hot brown water at that point.
Yeah, you do want you know a certain amount of dissolved solids. You know, I think the sort of accepted you know kind of middle point is 150 parts per million or milligrams per liter of water.
Right.
And you know, this is one of those things, again, you know, you could buy bottled water that's like spring water or something like that. Some of this is just kind of depending on where you live. You know, if you're here in Seattle and you're getting water from the Cedar River watershed, our water is soft here. So you're looking at, you know, you're not getting to that 150.
Right.
We're looking more about like 50.
Yeah.
And you know, there are ways to condition your water, but again, it's one of those things, how much dough do you have to drop on that?
If you really want to nerd out on it, you could buy a spring water, but you also want to be careful that it doesn't have too much in it. For example, Fiji water, which is my favorite water to drink, would not be ideal for brewing coffee because it's a little bit outside of the range for total dissolved solids. And here comes the nerd level coming back. So anyway, the RO water thing is a big deal. You want a little bit of stuff in there, but not too much. I hope that answers that question, James. Our next question comes from Kyle C. on Facebook, and he says, can you explain the differences between types of roasts, light, dark, etc.? Dennis is our head roaster and green buyer. Take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the differences in our... I'm just trying to think of how to put this. But essentially, I mean, like, you know, light roast to dark roast, one of the things we're talking about there, just they get their names from the visual cues. You know, you have coffee that we're roasting, and when it starts out, it's kind of a green to pale green, yellowish seed. and then we roast it. And at the end of that roast, it's anywhere from kind of a lightish brown, a light roast, all the way to probably on that far end like a French roast where it's very dark. Even some oils present, and that's the dark roast.
Dark roast, yeah.
There is an actual association with the color, and in the industry there's actually a system Agtron that we use to the higher the number, the lighter the coffee, so there's a color thing there for practical purposes.
Right.
For probably what you're
for the everyday,
more interested in is essentially, how far along or the degree of roast influences the flavor and the sensations of the coffee to a certain degree. And in a very, in kind of a nutshell, lighter roasted coffee is going to tend to be, maybe lighter in body. There's going to be more present acidity, and really into the kind of light medium sort of range. What you're going to experience flavor-wise is really just the inherent qualities of the coffee,
where it came from, and the processing,
each
and all
coffee
that
is unique to the place on this earth where it came from, the soil that it grew out of, and most importantly, the just tremendous amounts of human labor involved from the people picking the coffee, the farmers, the people handling and processing the coffee, and then also through its supply chain until it gets here. And so all of the beautiful things we experience in a cup of coffee, the flavors, the acidity, that sort of stuff, that's all there in the coffee. And roasting is just sort of unlocking and then maybe putting some things into balance. So as you kind of go along that scale and get into the more medium dark, and then dark roasts, essentially what you're doing is you're increasing the amount of body that you're going to feel up to a certain point in the cup, that tactile impression.
Yeah.
You're kind of, as you go darker, a lot of times you're sort of lessening the perceived acidity in the cup, so you're kind of getting a smoothing sort of quality.
Right.
And really, the flavor-wise, what you're getting, as you go darker, at a certain point, you do start to introduce a roast characteristic. There is a flavor that's a byproduct of the roasting process and not an inherent flavor of the coffee.
Right.
So, and at some point, you get sort of some roast quality and also the inherent flavors. And then as you get darker and darker, you sort of get less and less of the inherent flavor qualities,
and it's
more
more about
of
the roast. Yeah.
So it's so lighter. On that lighter end, you're getting all of the inherent qualities. As you move further along, you're also introducing a roast characteristic, and eventually just tasting the roast.
I kind of think of it a little bit simplified, a little bit like toast. You have good bread, right? That was from your craft artisan person down the road or whatever, and you have good bread to start with, and then you toast it. And there's a certain point where you've just lightly toasted it, and it's kind of highlighted what's the natural flavors that are in that bread. And then you can go a little bit further, and it's very toasted. And then you go to the point where all you really taste anymore is toast, and you might be scraping off the burnt part. That's an oversimplified version of saying kind of what you just said. Would you agree with that? Like you're kind of imparting more toast flavor and less of the bread flavor. Or roast flavor versus coffee.
Yeah, I mean it's
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, I mean as when any roaster is sort of making those decisions about what do you want to highlight, what do you want that end cup to be, and then as someone who's drinking coffee, it's sort of what do you want that experience? What's the cup of coffee that floats your boat?
Right.
And ultimately I do think if you're really enjoying the cup of coffee that's in front of you, that's great.
Do more of that.
Yeah. Find what you like. There's a lot to explore, and there's just a lot of beautiful coffee out there. For us here with our single origin coffees, we keep it in that kind of light to light medium range.
Right.
Because what we want is we want to share the story of that coffee through its sensory attributes.
What was there? Because that's what makes it interesting from this farm versus that region.
Well, yeah, it's just coffee. The coffees that we get, really are such a representation of that land and of that human labor, and they're all so unique that really we want to just let people explore the big beautiful world of specialty coffee. So that's our take with,
There we
with
go.
the single origins. But,
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Well, hopefully, Kyle, that answers that question a little bit. We could probably, I mean, you can literally go on for hours and books on all of this stuff. But hopefully, that kind of gives a little bit of insight to the way we think about it. Keep asking questions, and we'll keep coming up with answers on origin stuff, on brewing, on roasting. We'd love to help out and help you get more out of your coffee. So that's all for now. We'll see you guys later. Bye. Just wake up.